So for part 2, I wanted to talk about a little bit more about the side of ballet that people probably don't realize is even there. The burnout, the mental state, the eating disorders, and the misconceptions or the truths about it, really.
Yes, you want to talk about
Burnout is, I hear it a lot, and I wonder. I'm 44. I'm not burned out.
Yeah.
I just danced this weekend, what I think will probably be the last time. Not because I'm burned out, but because I'm aware that as I'm a little older and not dancing all the time like a professional dancer would, I am probably not up to the task. I can partner well, but I can't dance as a soloist at a level that I know is good. So that's more of a realization and an acceptance of something, and not the fact that I just don't want to do it anymore. I've lost heart. To be honest, I probably want to do it more than ever. And if I could just dance every day and perform, I'd be very happy. But I think, gosh, it's so hard to know where to start. I've seen and had a lot of students over the years. Very often, I think my working relationship with people starts with them coming to me looking for an answer about something, and people seem to come to me to ask questions and answers, and I don't know why, but maybe they know that I'm be honest or will be truthful with them. But a lot of people say they come to me in a very disheartened state. They don't believe they can do something, or they believe they've worked so hard for so long and have exhausted all possibilities and it's just not going to happen. And when I listen to them and I watch them, I see like they've missed the point. It's like they've been directed away from why they do it, or why they've been doing it in the first place, and are almost doing it for someone else, to please someone else, whether it's a parent or a supporter or a teacher or some goal that they've set themselves that is either unrealistic for the moment they've set it, or they can fall into the position of comparing themselves to their peers or their co-workers or those that have gone before them. And the whole thing that's really missing is they've forgotten who they are. They're doing everything based on what they think everybody else thinks they should be, and not for themselves. And so it's just one of the reasons, I teach a lot of kids, and all my career has basically been teaching girls ballet from age 10 to 18. That's usually the bracket I'm taught. And that's the age I love working with. There's that teaching girls ballet is something I really love. But what I've seen over that time is, what I want to say is that one of the reasons I don't like shouting at people. Sometimes I do. I get sort of very enthusiastic and I start screaming, but it's more in that I can almost, I want it for them.
Yeah.
And I'm like trying to close up the gap of their self-belief, when their self-belief perhaps starts waning in the face of something that's more challenging, and I see them kind of whirring up and backing out of it, and I start shrieking, do this, do this, do this. I feel like, I'm like a cheerleader in a high school stadium, or I'm at a car race cheering for the guy to win, or something like that, and I'm screaming my head off. But it's not really at them, it's really for them.
Yeah.
I think they need to be kept in a place where they're doing it for themselves. And I think, this is always a very sensitive issue, but I think a lot of people lay a lot of things on their kids. And I'm all for giving young people responsibility. I think it's very, very important. But it's which responsibilities they put on their kids that concern me. To put the responsibility of a performance or of training or of a competition or something like that, or the preparatory work on a child or a young dancer or a professional is absolutely the right thing to do because it's them doing it. To put on them the responsibility of the parent's happiness, whether the parent is happy or not with what the child is doing, is totally inappropriate in my opinion. And there's a reason that a parent is a parent and the child, the son, the daughter is the son or daughter. And that is not to look after the parent or to satisfy the parent's emotional needs. And I see that a lot. I have dealt with over the years a lot of situations where it's really the parents that are behind the child's unhappiness and distress. And if they just took a step back and they need to support the child, listen to the child where the child needs the support. Maybe it's having a meal ready for the child when the child gets home. Maybe it's accepting the child doesn't want to talk about something instead of interrogating them. Maybe it's listening and keeping their mouth shut while the child unloads everything.
Yeah.
What do parents say? Well, she won't talk to me. Well, perhaps they need to wonder why. Does the child feel safe talking to the parent? Perhaps not. Perhaps they fear the parent's reaction, so they won't talk. That's why they go and confide in a friend. And often I have students come and confide in me, and I say, have you spoken to your parents? And they say no.
Yeah.
And I say, well, you know, if you're going to have to, otherwise I'm going to have to, and I don't want to breach the trust we have, or that you confided in me, but I feel like this is something that has to be brought up with the people that really are responsible for you. And there's a huge panic.
Right.
And then of course, if they clam up, at least they're talking to someone, and eventually usually I can convince them that they need to talk to the parent and it'll be all right. And in cases I've been with them when they've talked to the parent, I've spoken to the parent first and then gone back to the child and reassured them that it'll be all right. And 9 times out of 10 it is. But yeah, I think people have to think very carefully about the type of support they offer. And I do believe that every parent, they genuinely believe they're doing the right thing. I think there are very, very, very few people that are purely operating in a destructive way. But I think, again, back to the last question, ballet is hard to understand. The culture of ballet doesn't slot in with anything else. And it takes an inordinate amount of patience, skill, understanding to, if you're not doing it, to understand what to do to support people that are, and it's very, very hard. And I think looking ahead, like a lot of dancers, they don't succeed in personal relationships because they're either with another dancer who's really looking for what they've never had and they don't get it. So it's a negative codependency, or they're with someone outside of dance because they want a break from dance, but then those people don't get it either. And so it's so difficult. Yeah.
So that relates to a lot of mental health. What about I find a lot of the time that it can be difficult for students just by, watching other students. When they're asked a question and they're asked to be honest, they almost clam up and they feel like they have to shut up. And what does that pertain to?
But I'm not a psychologist,
Right.
and I'm not qualified in that area. I can only speak from, in the big picture, the limited experience I've had.
Just one question. Do you think we need psychologists in the ballet world for students?
Well, you know what? I think that's a very good question, and I think that's, you don't want to pull people apart and dissect people apart, because there's something very beautiful and something very magical about one's authenticity. And the beauty of an individual as they are, without asking endless questions and asking to justify every action and every thought and every feeling. But I think if everyone was a perfect parent and life was perfect, you wouldn't need anyone, would you? But I think, that's not the case. It never has been and it never will be. And I think more than psychology, I think people need to be able to talk.
Yes.
And be okay. They need to feel safe. When people feel safe, they feel understood, and that when they speak, it's not just going to be dismissed. It's another fine line. Students and young people are young. They don't have necessarily the experience. But you know what? We forget. A young person is just as expert in themselves as an older person is in themselves.
Yeah.
And just because a child of 8, 9 or 10 has an opinion, it shouldn't be dismissed because they're only 8, 9 or 10, or they have a feeling. It's very cruel to just brush it off and say, well, you're just a kid, you don't know anything. Because they do. They know what they know, and they most definitely know what they feel. And they should be listened to, and it's valid. Everything is valid. And it only takes just listening once to someone, and they feel, okay, I'm not crazy, or somebody does listen to me. And on the other side, it only takes you dismissing someone once. At a moment they really need it just to be heard, and you can cause irreparable damage, or certainly start the chain of events, self-destruction, or their perception that they're not appreciated, not worthy of the moment. And I have to be very aware of that as a teacher, and I think people's perception is reality, and you have to. Whether they don't always care or think about what your motive is. They're looking at what they get, and rightly so. I mean, we all do that. I think you've got to be very, very careful with people, and you've got to listen. So I think the psychology. I think it's having people that understand. It's a very vulnerable business, being a ballet dancer. I've been a dancer. I've been any kind of performing arts or an artist. Whenever you go out in public and put yourself out there on the line and open yourself up, you're vulnerable, and it takes an immense courage and security to do that. And I don't think, we live in a very populated world, a very competitive, fast-moving world. People are, there's not a lot of individuality. We promote being an individual all the time. Like, you can do this, we live in America, everything's acceptable here. You can have any desire, any wish, any belief, any faith, and it's wonderful. And it's land of opportunity, and it is. Yet, I think reality is we don't allow it. So it's very contradictory and almost hypocritical. So, I think, well, we all need psychology and guidance. And keeping a balance and keeping a perspective, not losing sight.
That's good, So the last thing I wanted to address is eating disorders. What are the truths, and what do you think are the causes of that happening? Whether it's, do you think it's on the teachers and the unnecessary pressure that we put on ourselves as dancers, or both?
Well, again, Eliana, I'm not qualified really to say anything definitive or concrete. What I could say, I think every case, every eating disorder case is different. I think no two people are alike, just like no thumbprint is alike. And while some may bear, external similarities, it's a very, very individual, very, very deep, very personal thing. And I think we should all understand that these sorts of things, they're not just confined to ballet or dance, they are in every walk of life. And just like, alcoholism or any sort of addictive personality disorder, they all have different reasons for coming about. You just can't be generalistic.
Yeah.
I think the difficult thing with ballet is that inevitably you're training a body. And we all know the elephant in the room is that when you're going toward a professional career, how you look is important. There is no escaping that, and there never will be an escape. And again, we live in a world where, and rightly so, that everybody should have the opportunity to dance.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
No matter what age, what gender, what ethnicity, faith, again, same thing. Everybody should have that chance. No one should be deprived of that. But if one isn't educated properly, you have to draw the line. Like it's in a professional ballet company that is built on the history and heritage of classical ballet and the excellence and the performance excellence of the human body. You have to have the right body. There's just no getting away from it. And classical ballet is about line, it's about aesthetic, and if you don't have a body that's in good shape, strong, long, controlled, and aesthetically pleasing for what ballet is about, then it's not going to be on the level that it could be.
Right.
And so there's a line between equal opportunity and entitlement.
Yeah.
And I do believe everyone should have the opportunity to experience dance, but they have to do it with the understanding of their limitation. I hate to use that word. I really don't like it. I can't think of another word. Perhaps what's possible.
Yeah.
And that also flies in the face of saying there are no limits. Anything's possible.
Right.
I mean, it is if you've got the facility.
Yeah.
Like a student said to me that everybody knows you have to be skinny to make it. Well, absolutely, there's nothing more untrue than that.
Yeah.
And you see, until people who are in the public eye, the directors of big companies, come out and say it, and actually voluntarily speak, openly about what they really want and what really is important, it's not going to change. It doesn't stand a chance of changing. And as long as kids are on social media looking at tiny little 9, 10, 11, 12-year-olds doing multiple pirouettes with pretty feet and long legs and expensive costumes, they're going to keep feeding the monster, and they're going to want to be like that. And like I said, I think the teachers, they have a duty to educate their students in the values of what this is all about. I think they have a duty to guide the students and help them understand their own individual strengths and the beauty that they have to offer within them. I think they have to guide the students in a way they can separate their own self-worth from their physical appearance. And they need to look at their bodies like a machine, like an instrument. A musician, if they want a better instrument, they go out and buy one.
Right.
They go get a Stradivarius at auction. It costs a lot of money, but the sound improves if they're a professional musician. A dancer can't do that. Their body, the mind, the soul, it's all intertwined in one. And very often one is dependent on the other two. And if your body isn't feeling good, then of course it affects you emotionally, which affects you mentally.
Right.
And you can start a spiral of negativity.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that always seems to win out over the spiral of positivity, which is also there equally.
Yeah.
But if they're not guided, if those moments are not captured, I'd say to students when things go really well, I want you to remember this. Because when it goes the other way, which inevitably will, and you're down at the bottom of the wheel, you have to remember you were at the top. And you're not at the top for very long. And you're not at the bottom very long. But you spend most of your time on the side. Going up or coming down. That's where most of the time is spent. You spend just a fraction at the very, very top, at the peak of the mountain. And there's only one bottom of the mountain. Everything is a step on the way up or steps on the way down. And you've got to feel it all. You've got to embrace it all. And I think it's being aware.
Yeah.
I really do. It's about awareness. And I think teachers, parents, students, dancers, they all need to be aware of what they're doing. There's a big privilege to what we do, We love it. We get up, and I said to you earlier today, we got to remember we're just a speck in this big world, and we have a way of making the world of dance that's it.
Yeah.
And it's not.
Yeah.
It's just a little dot in a big life. And there are things in life that are far, far more important than ballet.
Yeah.
And just because it's important to us doesn't mean it's important to everybody else.
Yeah.
You just keep the balance and respect what we do and respect everything else on the outside.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and for sharing your knowledge with us. And thank you guys so much for watching.
Thank you.
You can find Mr. Pegler on Instagram. It's Philip Pegler.
Philip Pegler,
Yes.
with one L. Philip with one L.
Great. So I'll leave his handle down below. Go check him out. And again, thank you so much.
Very
for
welcome.
coming
Thank
on.
you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much, guys.